Here's Johnny! Hello there, my spooky, scary skeletons. It's Chloe in real life, and welcome back to another episode of my Halloween Spooktacular. And welcome back to another episode of Film Fridays. So, now that we've covered some of the scary movies that are featured in mazes at haunts this year, I want to talk about some of my personal favorite scary movies. And I decided to start with my all-time favorite, The Shining. So, let's get into it. So, The Shining is a movie that came out in 1980. It's directed by Stanley Kubrick, and it stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd, and it is originally based off a novel by Stephen King, The Shining. So, let's get into the plot. So, The Shining is a movie about Jack Torrance, who, after getting fired from his position as an English professor due to his drinking problem and bad temper, he goes to interview for a position as a caretaker at the Overlook Hotel. During the interview, the manager of the hotel warns Jack about some of the tragic events that has happened to the previous caretakers. A man named Grady came with his wife and 2 daughters, and he actually suffered a mental breakdown due to cabin fever and killed his whole family and then himself with an axe. But Jack is like, don't worry, that would never happen to me. I'm different. That would never happen. It's all good. So while Jack is at his interview, his son Danny has a seizure while talking to his imaginary friend Tony, who talks to him through his pinky finger. And while he has that seizure, he sees these horrifying visions of the Overlook Hotel, including a elevator with blood spilling out of it that terrifies my mother to this day. Play the clip, Mom! So when the family arrives at the hotel, the head chef Dick Halloran sees that Danny has telepathic powers and communicates to him mentally if he wants any ice cream. So when they go have their ice cream, Dick tells Danny that he also has the gift that Danny has, and he refers to it as the Shining. And he hints that bad things have happened at the Overlook Hotel and has almost left a mark on the hotel that only people who shine can pick up on. And Danny asks him about what's happened and if anything bad has happened in the room 237, because he can kind of sense that Dick is uneasy about the room. And Dick says that nothing that he sees can ever hurt him. It's just like pictures in the book. But he warns him to stay out of room 237. So once the family moves in, Jack is very excited because he can just spend all of his time writing. He doesn't have any distractions. He has plenty of time to work. But things start to go bad. His mental health quickly deteriorates. He is facing writer's block. He isn't getting enough sleep. He's very irritable. Danny has a vision of the murdered Grady girls, but the weather is still nice out. They haven't been completely snowed in, so Wendy and Danny decide to go outside and play in the hedge maze. They make a little game of it. When they reach a dead end, they retrace their steps, figure out their mistakes, and really get to know the maze. So while Danny is playing inside the hotel, he sees a ball roll towards him from the open door of room 237, so he's extremely curious. He heads inside. At the same time, Wendy is alerted by Jack screaming. She goes to see what's wrong, and Jack tells her that he had a nightmare where he killed Wendy and Danny with an axe. But Wendy says that everything's going to be okay, that it was just a nightmare, it would never happen. But at that time, Danny returns from room 237 covered in bruises and scratches. Wendy freaks out, thinking that it was Jack that harmed him, because in the past, Jack had actually dislocated Danny's shoulder on accident, but Wendy's still a little sensitive to it. So she takes Danny back to the room, and Jack is furious Craving a drink, he heads into the ballroom and he sits down and says that he would just sell his soul for a drink. And when he says that, he looks up and sees a bartender who is he doesn't even question it. In fact, he refers to the bartender by name. He has some drinks, and then Danny tells Wendy that Jack didn't attack him. It was a crazy lady in room 237. Wendy is obviously concerned because there shouldn't be anyone else in the hotel but them. So she goes tells Jack, who is alone in the ballroom, who is acting a little bit tipsy, and Jack goes to investigate room 237. When he goes inside the bathroom, he sees this beautiful woman standing there, and they share a kiss. When Jack looks in the mirror, he sees that he's not kissing a beautiful, wonderful, elegant woman. He's actually kissing the rotting corpse of an old woman. And Jack freaks out. The woman tries to attack him, but he runs out of room 237. So while this is happening, Danny's in the room and he has a seizure. And the chef, Dick, kind of realizes what's happening because, again, of The Shining. And he's worried about Danny's safety. So when Jack gets back from room 237, he tells Wendy that there was nothing there. And Wendy suggests to Jack that she wants to leave the hotel and take Danny to a doctor. Jack is like, no, I have a commitment. I have an obligation to my employers, and he storms out, heads back to the Gold Ballroom for a drink. When he gets there, there's this lavish party going on with guests dressed in 1920s clothing. He goes to the bar to a drink, but when he tries to get one, a butler bumps into him and spills stuff on his coat. He insists that he goes to the bathroom with him to help clean up his coat, but when they do, it's revealed that the butler is actually the past caretaker, Grady. And Jack's like, hey, you're the past caretaker who killed your family. And Grady tries to convince him, oh, no, sir, you've always been the caretaker here. And Jack's just like, I guess I have been. Yeah, okay. And so he starts to complain about Wendy. And Grady says that he needs to put Wendy in her place because she's acting crazy. And Jack's like, yeah, I do need to do that. Back in Florida, where the chef Dick is, he's concerned he can't contact the hotel at all, and he's scared for Danny's safety, and so he books a plane ticket from Florida to Colorado to go check in on the family. So now Wendy decides that she has had enough. She's going to go take Danny to the doctor, whether Jack is coming with them or not. So she takes a baseball bat to go confront Jack, and she goes into his office area and sees what he's been spending so much time writing, which is just hundreds and hundreds of pages of all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. She freaks out because she realizes that Jack is completely nuts. He appears and is like, hey, do you like my writing? And she's terrified because he's crazy. And she tells Jack that they're leaving no matter what. And so Jack expresses that he never has any intention of hurting her or Danny, but instead he wants to kill her, which is so much better. And so they're running up the stairs. She's trying to escape. She hits Jack on the head with a baseball bat, and he topples down the stairs and injures his ankle. While he's kind of unconscious, just a little out of it, she drags him into the kitchen and locks him up in the pantry. He's furious, and he tells Wendy that he's broken the radio and sabotaged the snowmobile so they can't escape, they can't contact anyone. So then Wendy goes outside to check if it's true, which it is. So she's freaking out. She's trying to figure out how they're going to escape. And Jack goes unconscious. And when he wakes up, he realizes that Grady is on the other side of the door, who expresses disappointment that Wendy was able to lock him up. And Jack is like, no, don't worry. I can finish this job if you just give me another chance. And then mysteriously, the door becomes unlocked, leaving Jack loose in the hotel. So then, flash to Wendy in her room. She's asleep with Danny. Danny wakes up and he starts chanting the word red rum. He gets some of Wendy's lipstick and writes it on the bathroom door. Danny is shouting the word red rum over and over and over again, which eventually wakes Wendy up, and she's like, Danny, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she looks in the mirror and sees that it reflects the word murder. Red rum is actually murder reversed. When this happens, she starts to hear a banging noise, like someone is pounding on the door from the hallway. She's scared that it's Jack trying to hurt her and Danny, and she takes Danny into the bathroom, grabs a knife, and locks the door behind them. She opens the bathroom window and is trying to push Danny out to help them escape. Danny escapes and he goes to run to hide, but Wendy can't get out of the bathroom window. And so then Jack breaks into the room with an axe and he starts chopping on the door. And it's like the most iconic scene of the entire movie, saying, "Wendy, I'm home!" And he's nuts and crazy and I love it. And he's breaks through the door and he sticks his face in and he goes, "Here's Johnny!" And Wendy freaks out because he's nuts and he's trying to open the door from the other side. And Wendy slashes him and he gets all scared. And they both hear the sound of a snowmobile show up and Jack goes and leaves to investigate. So inside the snowmobile is Dick, the chef, and he's arrived and he runs into the hotel calling out for Danny where he gets no response, but Jack is actually hiding behind a pillar. He leaps out, swings the axe towards his chest, and he kills him. Danny, who has now come back into the hotel from the outside, screams, revealing his location, and he runs outside. Wendy is now looking for Danny in the hotel, but she starts to see these terrifying images of the past ghosts of the Overlook Hotel, and now she's freaked out. Jack turns on the outside lights and sees that Danny is outside, running into the hedge maze, and he chases him. So Danny and him are running through the hedge maze, and Jack is following Danny's footprints, which Danny realizes, and he goes and retraces his steps backwards, stepping in his old footprints so that Jack can't find him. He exits the hedge maze. Wendy runs outside. They reunite and go in the snowmobile back down the hill. They escape. And Jack is left running throughout the hedge maze, screaming for Danny, and he eventually freezes to death, which we see the next morning. So now is the ending, which is a little bit spooky. Right before the credits, the camera pans to a wall filled with photographs of the history of the Overlook Hotel. It focuses on one in particular and zooms in, and we see a young Jack Torrance within the picture, but the caption reads July 4th, 1921, so that kind of leaves it up for interpretation. Was he always a ghost? Is he a part of the Overlook Hotel now? Who knows? So, let's get into what I thought. So, what I thought about this movie, I love, love, love this movie. It is, like I said, probably my all-time favorite horror movie, just because the visuals in this are incredible. Stanley Kubrick did a great job of creating these unforgettable moments, like he did it in 2001, and he did it here. And I feel like you can pick out any moment from The Shining and know that it's from The Shining because it's so stylized, like the scene with the elevators that my mom loves, obviously the scene with the Grady girls, the carpet alone is just unforgettable. Here's Johnny, like there's just so many iconic moments in this movie. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the performance. Jack Nicholson did such a great job of being crazy. Shelley Duvall was great. Danny Lloyd was also a wonderful performance. I love everyone in this movie. And then another thing I wanted to mention was the soundtrack. It's not even music, but the music that they play within this movie does such a great job of building suspense. It's all scratchy and high-pitched, and it just stresses me out, and I just love it because it just adds to the suspense of the movie so well. I just love this movie. It's incredible. So let me talk about the ending. I feel like it was really left up for interpretation. I personally feel like now that Jack has died there, he's now trapped with the history and the ghosts of the Overlook, and he has become part of the history. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing that happened to Grady, going through the life of a worker at these extravagant parties in the olden days, the 1920s. So that's my personal opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think down in the comments below because I want to know. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe. Be sure to share this video in case you know anyone that might like some extra spooky content in their lives. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a spooky video just like this one. I will see you all next time. Don't forget to stay spooky. Bye!